In order to care for something, you have to know its value, right? If I got a 2023 Benz, I already know because I didn't sign the paperwork, unless it was gifted to you if you're lucky enough. But if you bought it for yourself, you know how much you paid on that car, the down payment. You know what that APR is. You know what that monthly payment is. What do people do when they get a new car? Don't eat in my car because you know the value of your car. So you're going to take care of it. How are you going to take care of yourself if you don't know who you are? How are you going to take care of yourself if you don't know the value of yourself? I tell people, even before you start to do the self-care journey, take some time to really figure out who you are and not who you are in relationship to the other people. Because lots of times we're people that are people pleasers as Black women. We put our own needs to the side and I'm a mama, I'm a this, I'm a no. Sis, who are you? What makes you up?
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Legacy Speaks. My name is Sierra Hillsman, licensed professional counselor and emotional wellness coach. Today, I'm bringing you another amazing conversation that's like so timely. And I'm super excited to have this conversation with another phenomenal clinician. We follow each other on social media. I love her content. I love what she does. And she's a self-proclaimed self-care expert, and I'm super excited to jump into her story. But before I gas her up, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. And if there's anything that resonates with you, please drop that bar and tag us, okay? But let me introduce you guys to Miss Kresence Greenwood-Campbell. Hey,
Hi.
Kresence.
Hey, everybody. Hi, Sierra. And listen, likewise, between the awards and your reels and your posts, you from one sister to another sister, you are just as dynamic. I have to give you your kudos. I got to give you everything you deserve. I apologize, give you everything you deserve. I appreciate you bringing me on, and I love watching you. And let's get into it. Self-care is one of my favorite topics.
Absolutely. So, Crescents, what I often find is a number of us have like these misconceptions about self-care. You know, as clinicians, we get a little frustrated, right? Because there are a couple of words that are very trendy within our field. And granted, you know, everybody has their own perception of their healing journey or different approaches to healing. And so, can you destigmatize what self-care actually is and what that practically looks like, especially for Black people?
So oftentimes we have this idea that self-care is bubble baths, hair done, nails done, everything there, right in my Drake bag. And it's not. And I've been guilty of also thinking that it's just that. And it wasn't until I was in a situation where I was forced to understand that it's more serious than this. My life and my health was on the line. So for me, it's so important for me to teach other people, especially Black women, about self-care, because I don't want somebody else to be in a situation where they're in a doctor's office dealing with something that is fatal, dealing with something that is critical, having to understand, oh, it's too late, or you're too far gone. I want everybody to be empowered and understand it. So when we talk about self-care, we got to understand that self-care also aligns with our wellness journey, right? And to live well, we have to live well from a holistic standpoint. We're not just living well in one area. There's 8 different areas of wellness when it comes to self-care. Did you know that?
Yes, I did. Girl, come on, let's get into this wellness counseling. Break it down for the people,
All right,
okay?
let me get into it. If I forget one, please forgive me. So you ride with me. So the 8 different areas of self-care: personal, financial, spiritual, career, space, what is it? Oh, I just lost the last
Social.
social, relationships, and there's one more. Lord forgive me.
Intellectual.
Intellectual. See, it's 8, and I talk about them all the time, and I forget. There's 8. We can't be feeding just 1 or 2 areas and leaving the other ones void. We have to live a balanced life in all 8 of those areas. And if we're able to live a balanced life in all 8 areas of those, in all 8 of those areas, it helps us to manage our stress. Stress is going to come about to anybody, a millionaire, billionaire, somebody that, only makes a little bit of money. We're all going to experience stress on different levels. But if we're able to manage stress, it helps us to live a healthy life. If you have too much stress in your life, you have an increased level of cortisol in your body, which is a hormone. Too much cortisol in your body increases your likelihood of developing chronic illness, chronic heart disease. You'll have sleep problems, concentration problems, gut problems. All that stuff impacts us physically. We have to remember that our gut is our first brain. So if we are holding in all this stress, we're increasing our cortisol levels inside of our body. And then our body's going to start to tell us that we're stressed from a physical standpoint when we're having this heart disease, these chronic illnesses. But if we can manage stress, if we can manage those cortisol levels through self-care, our overall wellness will be optimal.
Hey, lovely. Shout out to you because I know mental and emotional wellness is important to you. If it wasn't, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. But lean in really quickly because I know sometimes it's really hard to create a plan and actually sticking to it. So let's take your mental health to another level. Ever wonder what keeps you from fully executing? Ever wonder how you can build the confidence for decision making? Well, guess what? You're not alone and I'm here to help. So head over to mentalhealthgoals.com for your free mental health plan. It'll give you practical strategies for addressing your current mental health needs. But first, you got to tap in. So head over to mentalhealthgoals.com to receive your free mental health action plan today. Do it right now. mentalhealthgoals.com. See you soon. Hey, y'all, it's Sierra. Make sure you head over to shoplegacysbks.com to check out the latest gear. As always, we have the classic therapy is dope crew neck as well as tees. So head over to cop your crew neck today. It comes in heather navy, that cardinal red, as well as that beautiful gold that we love to see. So head over to purchase yours, not only for yourself, but also for a friend as well. And we are offering free shipping right now. So head over to shoplegacysbks.com to cop all of your therapy's dope gear and check out all the other additional merch as well. Absolutely. Thank you so much for breaking that down. That's so important, especially because wellness counseling is my thing. And, when we get clients, immediately they automatically consider their spiritual well-being, their emotional well-being, and their physical. And they count out all the other attributes, like the way our finances impact us, the way our careers makes us feel, the way that we feel about ourselves, our relationships. And so those components are so important. And I like to add to the concept of trying to find balance. I always encourage individuals to find harmony because oftentimes when we're trying to create balance in all areas, then we find ourselves becoming like additionally stressed out because we're trying to spread ourselves so thin. And so learning to find those intersectionalities between all of those points or finding ways to partner up 2 or 3 or maybe 4 and recognizing that, like self-care also looks like the way that we talk about ourselves, the way that we perceive ourselves, the way that we approach our overall wellness, and that includes patience and grace. And so can you talk about some of those intangible components to self-care?
One of the biggest things I talk with my clients about when it comes to self-care is self-compassion. Mm-hmm. And self-compassion has 3 different components. Self-compassion isn't just being nice to yourself. It's experiencing mindfulness. It's experiencing self-kindness. It's experiencing common humanity. And what do I mean by that, right? So having self-compassion, being able to be mindful, be present in the moment when you're having a difficult time. Self-kindness. If I can talk to my girlfriend who's going through a hard time and give her all the love and feed into her and give her all those positive words, why can't I do that for myself? Self-kindness means talking to yourself like you would a girlfriend. That's the second part of self-compassion. And then common humanity, normalizing what you're going through. It's not to take away from what you're feeling to say it's not important, but understanding that, you know what? There's a lot of different people that are struggling with what I'm struggling with. And because I'm not the only person struggling, I know there's resources or other people that are out there that can help me. There's other people that have gone through that and I can take from their experience and learn from it. So self-compassion is so needed during self-care, not setting these long-term goals that are crazy and egregious and we can't reach them. When we talk about treatment plans and therapy and setting goals, I always tell my clients, okay, what's your long-term goal? What's that dream? What do you want to achieve when you're done, right? What do you want to optimally achieve through self-care? Okay, whatever that goal is, how do we break it down to small, measurable goals? You can't say you want to get from point A to point B if you don't measure those goals. So if you want to have optimal self-care, you want to improve your self-care, what are we increasing to decrease? What are we decreasing to decrease, right? Are we increasing self-reflection time and decreasing social media scrolling? And using self-compassion with ourselves when we're creating these goals. So instead of saying we're going to decrease our social media time, we're going to decrease it by maybe 5 minutes, right? Give yourself some compassion. If you know you scroll for hours on end, be compassionate and understanding that everybody goes through that, understanding when you start to do it so you can stop doing it, and then talking to yourself kindly, not saying, I can't believe I'm doing this again, saying, oh, you know what? We're doing this again. And maybe 5 minutes is too much of a goal. So maybe we decrease it to 2 times a day or 2 minutes per day, using some self-compassion when we're setting these small-term goals that are measurable to reach those long-term goals of optimal self-care.
Kresence, you better help the people, okay? Because that is listen, y'all, if you didn't know how to approach self-care, that is a great model. And essentially what she's asking you to do is leverage those SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time-oriented. And this whole process is very a trial and error. So if you're recognizing that this isn't working for you, revisit the chalkboard, the drawing board, non-judgmentally. That's so important, non-judgmentally. And you can make small adjustments over time through reflection. That's where that mindfulness component comes in. I also want to hone in on something that you mentioned in terms of like the concept of self-compassion. The reason why it's so important for us to be kind to ourselves is because if we're not kind prior to engaging in that self-care activity, we're not going to be fully present. Like you mentioned, you're going to beat yourself up for taking care of yourself. Those thoughts of like, dang, I need to be doing something else. I need to be more productive. I need to be on go. I could be utilizing this time for something else. And it's funny, in another episode that I previously recorded, we were talking about the concept of rest and how rest is an actual thing. Rest is an actual thing. And so please make sure that in any activity that you're doing, take care of that mental work so that you can be fully present in every single activity that you engage in.
Yes. And then, people don't realize that, you said in every activity you engage in, sleep is an activity. You got to do the work so you can fully engage in the activity of sleep. If you're not taking care of yourself, you can't sleep. You can't get into that REM sleep when we get the most sleep because your mind is going, the wheels are turning. You're focusing on the next thing and the next thing, and you're stressed out and your stomach hurts. And listen, everything, all behaviors have a function. Everything goes together. If we can take care of ourselves in all 8 of those areas, from a holistic standpoint, from a balanced standpoint, everything just starts to flow, and understanding with the self-compassion that, you know what, this worked then and it doesn't work now. Or, you know what, I was able to do this and I wasn't able to do that. And that's okay. Let me pivot and make a change to where it does help. Let me pivot and make a change to where it does support me. And understanding that it's okay. Change is the only thing that we are promised in life. That's inevitable. So being okay with that.
Oh, that's so good. When you started talking about pivot and change, that's when I'm like, oh, those are words that are scary for some, but also empowering as well. Because in the pivot, you get to learn so much about yourself. And so, can you talk about how self-care gives us an opportunity to have a greater sense of self? What does that look like? What are the benefits of self-care in relation to our identity?
Listen, in order to care for something, you have to know its value, right? If I got a 2023 Benz, I already know because I didn't sign the paperwork, unless it was gifted to you if you're lucky enough. But if you bought it for yourself, you know how much you paid on that car, the down payment. You know what that APR is. You know what that monthly payment is. What do people do when they get a new car? Don't eat in my car, because you know the value of your car. So you're going to take care of it. How are you going to take care of yourself if you don't know who you are? How are you going to take care of yourself if you don't know the value of yourself? I tell people, even before you start to do the self-care journey, take some time to really figure out who you are, and not who you are in relationship to the other people. Because lots of times We're people that are people pleasers as Black women. We put
Mhm.
our own needs to the side and I'm a mama, I'm a this, no. Sis, who are you? What makes you up? I don't want to hear that you're a cook because you cook for everybody else. I don't want to hear that I'm a doer because you sacrifice and at the end of the day, you laying on the floor, you ain't got nothing left because you didn't give to everybody else. Who are you? Well, I don't know who I am. So if you don't know who you are, you don't know your value, how are you going to care for yourself? If you just gave me a Benz off the street, I didn't know what year it was. If I didn't even get in it to see what it looks like on the inside, if I didn't know the value behind it, why would I take care of it? Oh, it's just something somebody gave me. Self-care and understanding who you are go together. I think you should do self-love work before you do self-care, but you can also do them simultaneously. But through self-care work, you start to understand what makes you tick, your likes and dislikes, what you're willing to accept and what you're not willing to accept, right? It helps you to understand your boundaries. It helps you to understand your values. And then through self-care and self-reflection, you start to increase your self-love. You start to deepen your connection with yourself. You start feel comfortable being able to say saying with your chest, I'm not doing that. That doesn't serve me. That self-care, that self-discovery help you to initiate those boundaries that are needed for self-care as well, too. There's no way you can do the two separately. There's no way you can't do either one of them. They can go hand in hand. They can happen simultaneously, hand in hand, but there's no way you can't do either one. They have to both happen. It's impossible.
Absolutely. The key word is value, right? And there's this exercise, and I'm pretty sure that you've done this, whether or not in like accepting commitment therapy, when we're talking about the concept of like values clarification. And essentially what we're challenging clients to do is identify your values and prioritize those values. It's okay for us to have shared values because ultimately all those things on those lists or on those cards, they're very subjective in nature. And so you get an opportunity to identify what is important to you. But what gets people is the prioritization of it all. And so even when you're talking about knowing your worth, knowing who you are, it's difficult for you to know your worth and know who you are if you don't know how to prioritize self. I always tell clients that it's important for us to take care of the I before we can take care of the we. And so it's important for us to be able to take some time to figure out, how do I tend to myself during this time? How can I learn about myself in relation to this situation or in relation to these people? And that takes a lot of like work with sitting with yourself. And I think the pandemic highlighted that absence of learning to sit with yourself and learning how to like process some of the things that we're dealing with. And so thank you so much for pointing all of that out.
No, you're welcome. One of the things that we talk about when we say, sitting with ourselves, we have to remember that we do have parts of ourselves, right? In IFS, internal family systems theory, we talk about there's an existential part of ourself and the protector part of ourselves. The protector part is literally what it sounds like. It's that part of you that wants to be to defend yourself, make sure you're safe, keep yourself in a healthy kind of situation so that nothing bad happens to you. The existential part is quite often seen as the inconvenient part. It's the sad part. It's the angry part. It's the part that is grieving. It's the part that people say, oh, you'll be okay. It's the part that people don't want to deal with because they don't know how to deal with it. And because we push that away, we're so focused on the protector part that this existential part, it doesn't really go away. It still sits there, but it starts to grow and fester and become toxic. And that's when you see the people that are just lashing out, because they've never been provided the opportunity to sit with that part of them that's unknown. I don't want to say the scary part, because there's nothing scary about being sad. There's nothing scary about being angry. But until we sit and have some compassion for all parts of ourselves, we can't really have wellness, right? Our wellness journey can't really begin until we start to accept the fact that there's parts of us that we might not like. There's parts of us that we may have hidden. But if we start to accept them and bring them to the forefront, understanding that they all play a part and they're all important, that's one of the important things with self-care too. That's why the pandemic, as bad as it was, and we've lost so many lives and so many people had so many health issues afterwards, I really appreciate the fact that, like you said, it helped us to really sit in things. And I think the pandemic made mental health a lot more acceptable in the Black community. A lot of us had to sit and be still and be like, wait a minute, you're going through that? I'm going through that? Well, this don't feel good. I have no out. I can't just run out in the street and avoid it. Now I got to sit with that existential part of me. And social media helped us to kind of create this community of you too, while we're making these funny videos, but there's some serious in there. Oh, wait, I'm me too. I'm not alone. Wait, you struggle with self-care? Oh, wait, you don't like yourself? Being a mom sucks for you too? Oh, sometimes you can't stand these kids, but you love these kids? Absolutely, you're not alone. So
Absolutely.
that part of the pandemic was kind of a beautiful part of it. Not saying that it was a beautiful thing, but there was something that came out of it that made mental health a lot more acceptable in our community. And I love that.
Exactly. It helped to normalize the experience. It helped people to be courageous enough and bold enough to talk about their experiences. And, for us as Black people, we don't take anything serious. We like to joke and stuff like that. We've learned to laugh at our own pain, but there's beauty because that creates a segue into having deeper conversations. A number of the clients that I serve, they're working professionals. And so for them, they're trying to learn how to navigate what that looks like in terms of like establishing themselves within their role, while also trying to make sure that they're tending to their well-being, because burnout is a real thing, compassion fatigue is a real thing, racial trauma in the workplace is a real thing. And so can you provide some insight on what that looks like to take care of yourself so that you can be accepting of yourself in these spaces? There was something that you mentioned in terms of like learning how to appreciate every component of yourself. But we understand that toxic work culture keeps us from being able to show up authentically. Microaggressions, concerned about whether or not we'll be received, whether or not we'll be looked at as the angry Black person in the team and whatnot. And so how does one take care of themselves as they are also working on their professional growth?
Hey, lovely. Shout out to you because I know mental and emotional wellness is important to you. If it wasn't, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast. But lean in really quickly because I know sometimes it's really hard to create a plan and actually sticking to it. So let's take your mental health to another level. Ever wonder what keeps you from fully executing? Ever wonder how you can build the confidence for decision making? Well, guess what? You're not alone and I'm here to help. So head over to mentalhealthgoals.com for your free mental health plan. It'll give you practical strategies for addressing your current mental health needs. But first, you got to tap in. So head over to mentalhealthgoals.com to receive your free mental health action plan today. Do it right now. mentalhealthgoals.com. See you soon.
I think one of the best things that I have discussed with clients, a lot of my clients that are in these careers, whether they're in these, what is it called? Entry-level jobs or they're senior management, boundaries. Boundaries are the things that are really going to support you in this career. Boundaries are the things people may not like it, but they'll respect it. If you make yourself too readily available and I'm just going to be available whenever and I'm going to be the yes person, yes, it benefits them, but in the end, you end up feeling burnt out. You feel resentment. And there's different levels of burnout too. I just found this out. There's something called habitual burnout. That's worse. It's almost like a chronic burnout. When you feel this all the time, you can go on vacation and come back and you still feel like you feel hopeless. You feel things aren't going to change. You're distraught. You feel resentful. You don't want to get to that point. Boundaries helps us to put ourselves in a place where we can be respected and not have those feelings of resentment, have those feelings of burnout. If you're putting yourself in a situation where you work 9 to 5, but you're staying in meetings till 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, you're teaching people that they can have access to you at any time because we teach people how to treat us. So you can't say, I'm taking this job and I'm working 9 to 5, but then you're in meetings from 6 to 7, or you're answering the phone all the time. You can't get mad at them. You can get mad at yourself because you didn't stick to your own boundary. And remembering that boundaries are either rigid, healthy, or porous, right? And a boundary is not cutting somebody off. A boundary is not ignoring an email. A boundary is not being aggressive. That's not how you set boundaries. Having clear conversations with people to let them know, acknowledging what's happening, and then providing a consequence for what happens when there's a boundary violation. You can either provide a consequence or a threat. A threat is, if you keep calling me after 5 o'clock, I'm going to quit. But you keep answering and you don't quit, right? A consequence is, if you continue to call me after 5 o'clock, I'm going to resign from this position. And when they continue to do it, you don't answer and then you resign. setting those boundaries helps to manage that stress level in the workplace. So that way, when you're done, you can wipe your feet at the door, go to your next destination, go into your house, go to dinner, whatever it is, and focus where you need to be so you can have optimal self-care in that personal area, in that spiritual area, outside of that career.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do want to reiterate what she literally just said. A lot of people get caught up in the establishing of the boundary, but the work begins when we learn how to reinforce the boundary. And that is so important. That's a process within itself. And so figuring out what happens when that boundary is violated, and it can be done in stages. And so it doesn't have to feel like it's a black or white or immediate cutoff. What is the progressive approach? That can also look like having the conversation with the person. That can also look like tying in your supervisor, your direct manager. That can also look like, hey guys, let's have a team meeting about our team culture. And so don't feel like you have to immediately like shut things down. Make sure that you're taking the appropriate measures that you're comfortable with, but also measures that are going to protect your sanity, because just because you're comfortable with it, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's healthy for you. So thank you so much. Kresence, I do want to jump into what led you to focus on self-care. I appreciate the fact that we have an opportunity to focus on things that are near and dear to our heart based upon our personal experiences. And so can you dive into what led you to focus on self-care and how you've been able to practically showcase that in your own personal life?
Yeah, so February 2016, I gave birth to my first child, my beautiful baby girl, my daughter. And I was the mom I ran the Kevin Hart marathon in Philly when I was pregnant, ran 2 other marathons. I think I was working out 24 hours before I gave birth to my daughter. I'm just an active person. And so after I gave birth to her, for me, the snapback was real. I had to snap back. I had to, slim back down and get slim and trim. And it wasn't because anybody was saying that to me. It was a mixture of messages from social media and just my own kind of insecurities. So I was so focused on working out. There was one day, in June 2016, I had ran 3 miles, went to the gym, did a leg day, had my green juice, had my salad, did everything I was supposed to do. And I was laying in bed with my husband and my arm was numb. And I was like, it's really weird. My arm is numb. I haven't been laying on it because, sometimes you lay on your body the wrong way, it'll fall asleep. I ignored it. Sensations came back 20 minutes later. It went out again. It's really weird. I said something to my husband. He's like, oh, you probably just, maybe you hit something at the gym. Maybe you did too much. Okay, cool. I may have overexerted myself. Next day at work, I'm at my desk and I'm sitting there and I'm like, my right arm's doing it again. And I called my husband and he's like, just keep watching it. You'll be okay. By the time I hung up the phone, Sierra, I had complete paralysis on the right side of my body. Now, my mother had just had a stroke a few months before that. So I'm thinking I'm having a stroke as well. Long story short, I go to the ER because I can't move anything, can't do anything. And they're like, well, you're not having a stroke, but nobody's telling me what's really happening. And I understand doctors don't want to do that because they don't want to scare you. There's malpractice lawsuits. I get all that. But in my mind, I said, something's not right. There's no reason why. Long story short, that was in December 2016. I ended up getting diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. They found several lesions in my brain, and that's why I had complete paralysis on my right side, which still have not fully recovered from. That's not going to come back. While I can move and I'm mobile, I have limited strength in the right side of my body. And when I was at the doctor's office, I said to him, this doesn't make any sense. I shouldn't be having this. I work out, I drink green shakes, I take care of myself. And this man pushed away from the desk, swiveled around in his chair and looked me in my face, little old white man, and said, self-care is more than just running and working out. And I said, oh, okay, I got to do something different. So he started talking to me. He said, what's your stress level like? Are you available for everybody? And I was working a job that was extremely stressful. He said, you need to look at your work-life balance. You need to look at the other areas in your life. And I was like, he just schooled me. This man just sunned me. But I needed that reality check because myself, like so many of us, think that self-care is just working out. No, self-care means having appropriate boundaries, knowing when to say no. Self-care is not always fun. Self-care is going to look ugly. Self-care is looking myself in the mirror and saying, you're doing too much. You're not treating yourself the way you need to. We need to do better. Self-care is not just getting my hair done. That's self-maintenance. I mean, those things make you feel good, but it's deeper than that. I can't sit here and say I take care of myself, but I'm running ragged. Self-care means sometimes at night at 9 o'clock when I put my daughter to bed and she wants to come out and still hug and talk, baby girl, mommy loves you, but my shift is done at 9 o'clock. And I've had to say to her, in order for mommy to take care of you tomorrow, mommy needs her time now. So I need you to go ahead and go to bed. You're safe. There's no monsters. You've eaten. You've gone to the bathroom. Mommy needs her own time. And it's hard because it feels mean, but I explain it to her. Yes, she sees me working out. Yes, she sees me doing yoga, but she also sees me journaling. She also hears me saying, mommy feels overstimulated and overwhelmed, and I need to take a moment for myself. That's self-care. Being able to say, I need to go take a breath, and going and sitting in my living room and she can see me taking a breath. And when she tries to interrupt me, ignoring her and saying, I'm not ignoring you because I don't want to talk to you. I'm ignoring you because I need to take care of myself to take care of you.
Ooh. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for sharing that and your transparency. There's so many things about that that I resonate with. One, effectively communicating how important self-care is to you, but also communicating it to your tribe, your family, the spaces that you occupy in, because some people may not get it. They may not truly understand it. I know for me, like I also have a history with chronic illness. And so that whole concept of like making sure that you're managing your stress, making sure that you're taking care of your body, because it really does wear you down. It really does. I know for me, like this past year, I was working at an agency and then going home and seeing clients' private practice, all in the desire to get to the bag and have this financial security and everything like that. And that's why I really want to hone in for anybody who's listening to this, right? Like we talked about, we want to take care of our physical wellness, our financial wellness, our occupational wellness. But if your body, the actual vehicle that God gave you, is not working, you have to take some time to focus on that before it shuts down. All we keep saying is like one more thing, one more thing, one more thing. That one more thing can literally be the end of you. And so learning to just allow yourself the time to think about it, to breathe, because sometimes we don't even give ourselves the space to be able to think about what we specifically need. I hear this a lot with clients. I'm like, what do you need in this moment? And they're like, I don't know. Well, let's be fully present in this moment and identify what you need and figure out ways that we can acquire those needs. If you can't get them for yourself, if they're not easily accessible, who can we pull in to assist with this process? So thank you so much for sharing your journey. Thank you so much for your transparency. And because out of that, you were able to birth a support group, an emotion regulation support group for kids and parents. And so can you talk a little bit about that as well?
Yes. So my agency, Holly Street Counseling Wellness Services, along with myself and my 2 interns, we are going to be starting an emotion regulation program for children in the city of Philadelphia, specifically North Philly. It's going to be at no cost to the parents or the children. It's going to be a 12-week course. It is surrounded around emotion regulation and helping the children and the parents to understand what emotion regulation means. And there's a lot of programs that are out there that are specifically just for the children and the parents aren't involved. For me, the parents need to be involved. I ran a community behavior health agency for 5 years. I was a clinical director and I was in charge of their therapeutic nursery and their adolescent and children program. And a lot of times I noticed that the parents were not involved a lot. There's no judgment. A lot of parents are single parents. A lot of parents are working 2-3 jobs. They have other children, so they can't be involved as much as they want to. But the children that I saw that had the most success were the parents that were able to be a lot more present versus not being present. They may not have attended every single conference. They may not have answered every single phone call, but they found a way to be present in other ways. Maybe they replied with an email, maybe 2 days later, maybe they sent a text message 2 days later, being present and understanding and sitting with your child helps them to be more successful. So with our program, it's not just teaching the child about emotion regulation, also helping the child understand their triggers so the parent can understand their triggers. So when the child starts to have a moment where they're unwinding and unraveling, the parent can say, hey, you're breathing really deep, or you're stomping, what's something different we can do? Or the parent can show them some compassion so that they can then mimic their own self-compassion, right? The parent can remind them, hey, mommy goes through that too. Sometimes if we tell our children, oh, you got upset because you hit your toe, mommy hits her toe all the time, and girl, I get mad. That's that common humanity, right? Being able to sit with the child in the moment and say, okay, I'm hearing you say you're upset. So the parents in the program will learn how to engage with the child when they're upset, helping the parent to understand how to help the child regulate themselves, bring them from a 10 down to a 0, knowing when to jump in, knowing when not to jump in, and helping the parent to also understand, what is this triggering within you? And is this appropriate? Is this the appropriate time to jump in with the child? Helping the parent to understand the importance behind self-care so they can support the child. If this child is screaming and running around and throwing stuff and punching walls, is this the time for you to jump in, mom? Okay, you feel like you can jump in? How do you do that? And what do you do when you jump in? Because when they're at 10, trying to tell them to breathe deep is not really going to help. So what's going to be something else? You got to kind of let them just get it out. When they're at a 10, bring them down to maybe even a 2, and then start to implement some of those strategies. And mom, if you feel triggered, after you're done walking away and processing and doing what you need to do, or finding somebody else in the house to support Johnny while he's snapping to make sure he's safe, go engage in some self-care so that you can have some compassion for yourself, and then come back and provide that same compassion to your child to help regulate their emotions. So we're really, really excited about this program we're going to be starting.
Absolutely. And you guys, if you're interested, especially if you're in the Philadelphia area, please head over to Holly Street Counseling to check out all their services and all the things that they're doing within that particular area. Please, Kresence, let the people know how they can continue to stay connected with you, how they can tap in with you.
You can tap in with me on social media, on IG and on TikTok, on both platforms, Kresence the Psychotherapist. I'm also on Facebook as Kresence Campbell. I recently just started my YouTube channel as well, so you can find me as well on there as Kresence Campbell. I do go by Greenwood-Campbell. Sometimes people shorten it because it's very long. But whether you put in Kresence Greenwood-Campbell or Kresence Campbell, you will find me on YouTube, again, Instagram and TikTok. It's Kresence the Psychotherapist.
Absolutely. That is super exciting. So once again, thank you so much for all the gems that you've dropped, all the wisdom that you provided. And you already know that this is the Legacy Speaks podcast. And I ask this question of all of my guests: what would you like your legacy to speak about you?
Ooh. My legacy, I would like for my legacy to speak to my faith and trust in God, and my belief in the human race, and knowing that we are all innately good, but we all just need a little bit of help.
Absolutely. Oh, love it. That was so beautiful. You guys, if you loved anything from this particular episode, please let us know by dropping a review or leaving a comment in the comment section. Don't forget to share this episode, and make sure that you are tapping in with Kresence at Kresence the Psychotherapist on TikTok and Instagram. Once again, my name is Sierra Hillsman, licensed professional counselor and emotional wellness coach. You could reach me and stay connected at Legacy SBKS on everything. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share, and definitely stay connected for your next episode that's coming up. If you thoroughly enjoyed it, once again, y'all make sure that y'all share it, okay? Because these gems, these bars that Kresence just dropped, A1. All right, y'all. And I'll see y'all next time.